Hi
Why
guys,
not?
we are here with Eric Shawell from Red Hat. Uh, the hangout today is workshop about VPN. Eric, hello.
Hello.
Please, 5 minutes to to wait to the members. Mauro,
Hello.
uh,
¿Escuchas, José?
you're, yes.
Okay. Okay.
The members is arriving now. Eric, please, 1 moment.
No worries.
2 minutes to start. Mhm.
I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my screen share.
It's perfect. We are
Let's see.
seeing to him.
Let's see. Tuck you away over here.
Okay, Eric, you can start when you prefer.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Chabel. I'm a JBoss technology evangelist that covers the product side versus the community side. I started out with all the integration and BPM software at Red Hat, but now my focus has been narrowed down a little bit more. I have some help from a couple of colleagues, and I just focus on the business rules, events, and process tooling that we have and products, and that is the Red Hat JBoss BPM Suite, and that is a superset of the BRMS product. So what we're going to do today is walk through a bit of a workshop. So this can be as hands-on. Generally, I'm in the room, so it makes this a little bit easier for us. But this lab has been done remotely before, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm also located, for your information, in Europe. I live in the Netherlands, Holland. So you can find me online with the Twitter and the blog there and stuff. You'll see I'm quite busy with publishing stuff like that. So thanks for giving me the chance to talk to you guys half a world away, and let's see what you guys think of this. So there's one of two things we can do, and I think what we will do is have the integration discussion and kind of walk through what BRMS is and what BPM Suite is, just to give you a very basic background. Normally I would like ask to raise hands and see who has experienced this or not before. I've been in groups where they know what the rules and stuff is. In that case, then we tend to just dive right in and get started and let them go hands-on for the whole 2 hours. The nice thing about this is when you do go hands-on, when we actually get to the workshop part, it doesn't end here tonight. It's online, hosted in the cloud. I have most of the stuff on OpenShift, so there'll be absolutely no problem with carrying on and doing it on your own. And just ping me if you have any problems. Okay. Next, we're going to look at the starter kits. That's something new I kind of put together to tie in all the various aspects of getting started from zero to something building, including running through the workshop. So those are some stuff we're going to look at, and there's some demos I can show you, or we can at least take a look at, or you can dive into later. But I will walk through how to get them running and what they look like, and I have quite a large set of these things that show various types of integration with these products, either demonstrating how to do rules or how to put rules into a BPM process, how to call a web service, things like that. There's also more complicated ones that involve things like document management, integration with Fuse, for example. And if you've been following into my any of my articles online, then I've been publishing some of that stuff quite a bit lately. So we'll take a look at that. So I'll start here with the getting started. And if you notice up here at the top, I hope you guys can see that, but otherwise it might be being recorded or something. You can look at it later. But it said the BPM workshop dash on the .rhcloud.com. And then you go to workshops.html, and this is, you can follow right along with what we're doing here. So anything you don't understand or whatever, want to revisit it, this remains online. We'll start with the introduction. So this is a picture of a wall being hit with some primer paint before they actually put a layer of paint on top of it. They cover up the old stuff with something called primer, and that's been a theme when I'm giving the beginning talks or the basic talks, or trying to introduce to people what this stuff is. We call them primers. So the very first layer you're getting here is we're going to take a look at what a business rules management system is, so you know what we're talking about, and positioning the problems around that. And then we're going to look at the BPM space and with the same idea, positioning what the problems are and what you're dealing with. So if we take a look at the traditional way that applications are built or used to be built, we'd like to think. You'll have some kind of request coming in. Your company, in this case a financial one, might be doing some black magic inside of a piece of software that you and your teams have written, or somebody before you has written. And all the logic and the rules for the organization are tied up inside of the whatever programming language you've decided to use to build this. The second aspect is that it takes quite a bit of time to make changes to this. So you have maintenance cycles maybe twice a year. So if it takes twice a year to go through to make a change, that's not a very flexible way of developing or progressing in the business. So they don't really like that. The third thing is different people interpret the rules differently, and often inconsistently within the same company. You saw this really vividly happening during the financial crisis when that all hit, and the housing bust in the States, and they started to have compliancy laws changing, weekly, and you saw quite a few companies getting really interested into in the financial services, very interested in doing something like rules if they already were not dealing with stuff like that. And we have a public reference around one of those. It was in London that basically put all its compliancy inside of our BRMS product to be able to keep track of the various aspects of the changes that are flying around while their applications were being developed around them. So the first step and the most obvious thing that has to do with rules is we need to externalize this logic, right? So we need to have some sort of repository on the outside of what we're doing with our applications in our business. We call that a rule repository. When you separate this out, you immediately get visibility into what are rules and what are not rules. So stuff that has to do with actually running the application and dealing with requests may not always have to be an externalized rule, but there will be stuff that the business person is responsible for, or the parts of the organization that supply business logic and rules, finally get a good look at and be able to maintain on the side without having to redeploy your application. This also provides the agility you're looking for and the ability to change those. We like to say runtime, but in a professional organization, there's not a lot of ability to change stuff in production on the fly, and you generally do not want to have that kind of access for your business user to change rules on the fly. But you do set up rules at all the various aspects and levels going towards production. So the ability to not have to redeploy a whole application or rebuild or go through that whole testing of the application. You're only having to retest rules or your business logic. This is a much more agile and quicker way to get into production with changes than having to rerun the whole complete cycle. And the consistency we mentioned. So in our financial example, if we're talking about compliancy to all the various lending rules and investment rules and things like that, that we're changing around the financial crisis, if you can keep that consistent, then everybody's pinging and matching their application and checking against the exact same fundamental rules that the rest of the company has to use. So you can put them in there one time and everybody has them ready for them. So this is the very light positioning of what we're talking about when we're talking about using a business rules management system. So there's some other concepts that they like to use these acronyms for, so like CEP, and it stands for Complex Event Processing. So throughout the talks you hear me talking about rules, events, and process. Those are the three aspects that have to do with these products. So complex event processing, we've arrived at the events section of the talk. So what is an event? To keep it really simple, an event is nothing more than a rule with a time element added. So it's they like to say temporal element has been added. So for the mathematical guys, when you have point A and point B, and if something happens between point A and point B on some timeline, then you need to react to that. That rule needs to be triggered. Normally your rules are static and have nothing to do with the timeline. So you give them some information and you say make a decision and give me the decision back based on the information you have right now. A very classical example of applying temporal rules is what a credit card company would do with fraud. So if I'm traveling around the world and I happen to be today physically in Peru making charges at stores with a credit card, and then all of a sudden within 24 hours they see that same credit card being used in North America and Japan, which is a physical impossibility. They need to have a rule set go off that triggers that and says, hey, maybe we got some fraud going on and we need to block Eric's credit card and contact him and see what's going on. So that's a really classic example. What's much more modern day is what you see here in front of you. Make it a little bit bigger here. The customers nowadays, for no matter what organization, what product, or whatever you're using, will have the access to social media, and might be complaining about a company, might be, you know, who hasn't done that when you get a bad order or bad service. But to monitor these kind of streams, these are nothing more than event streams, and to react to what you're hearing and being able to channel this into some kind of rules that can watch this with over time and trigger some kind of decision out of that. I have a really good classical case where I've been flying for years with a company called KLM. It's a Royal Dutch airline. Used to be that when you had problems or whatever, you would call the help desk line and you get somebody on the phone, and whether that's a retiree or a student trying to get through school that's covering one of these help desk lines that they use, and walking through an application that allows them to answer questions through certain workflow. That was about all the help you could get. And nowadays, if you Facebook or Twitter or anything with the KLM in it, you get a response they promise within an hour. I've never had to wait more than 10 minutes, and even rebook flights through direct messages and things like that. So being able to be responsive and to react to the various things that are happening with your customers and not ignoring that chain of communication is something that's quite important, and it's a real good example of complex event processing. Okay, the third aspect. So we've covered rules and events, and now we're going to take a look at the process aspect. This tends to be projects that get a little bit more into the enterprise. These are things that have to do with looking at the organization as a whole, or the organization is making a move to getting rid of inefficient manual processes, improve the visibility and agility again by making stuff repeatable and consistent. Taking that group of people you see there in the middle, because when we're dealing with computers and consistency, the most inconsistent aspect is people. You know, we make a lot of mistakes, and we like to go drink coffee, and we like to take our time, or we might get sick, or somebody, you know, quits the company and doesn't come back, and things like that. While you have a bunch of tasks on your desk. So being able to manage all that is really important. You also have interaction with not only pillars inside your business units or areas of your company, such as, you know, shipping and logistics or whatever. You're going to have maybe third-party connections to some financials, or to check the inventory what one of your delivery, one of your suppliers might have given you access to their systems. So it can get to be quite a complex arena that you're playing in. So what is BPM doing? What you generally see is you have some kind of automated layer in an organization that's dealing with interactions with lines of business, whether that be, you know, combinations of services or I hear somebody. Sounds like somebody's underwater. Everybody still hear me? Hope you're still there. Okay. So we have the various backends that have been, the interaction with that has been automated. That will get you a layer of services or an ESB, something along those lines. Be messaging with your Fuse Camel routes or things like that. And then on top of that or underneath that, or, you know, interacting from off the business side and the various elements that are involved there, you have a process model. So something you can diagram out that then step for step does exactly the same thing through each interaction with that process. So you've sat down and had workshops and decided this is how this process works, and then you model it out. And inside that process, one of the biggest aspects, it doesn't always have to be, the ideological way to attack this or to implement this is something we call straight-through processing. You can perfect a process without having any human interaction, and then you're leaving it all up to the machine, the rules, and the mapped out model to sort out what's going to happen. No delays, no long existing problems where you have to manage user participation. But if you have user interaction with your processes, then you're at least narrowing that down to the specific places where it happens. You present them with the information they need to make a decision in some form that they need to fill in to solve that user task, or to validate whatever that step is, or to approve something in that step. And you can also add things such as timers. You can add such things as delegation, reassignment, things like that. So you can make sure that, for example, if you have a 3-man department and you need 3 decisions, or you need 2 people to solve this decision, then if one of them gets sick, that it doesn't sit on his desk after he's claimed a task for too long. Get put back in the pile or get reassigned to somebody else in the group, or automatically claimed, depending on how you decide to model that. And one of the biggest things and one of the largest bonuses is getting absolute visibility into what's happening in each one of these processes that are implemented in your organization. So seeing not only how fast things are happening, but seeing how long certain steps take, what the bottlenecks are, what happens when there's a peak. For example, if you're a retail, have a retail process, then around Christmas time, your web shop starts getting pounded like thousands of times more. Being able to apply some of the history, or being able to simulate such a peak and watch what happens with these human tasks, and maybe these 3 people are not enough to get it done, and if you double them, is that going to be enough, or is it going to be still such a bottleneck in the processing time that I'll have to back up and rethink this, or add more people, things like that. And the management information doesn't necessarily have to just be about how fast a process went. It can also be about the various systems within the organization that are interacting with your process. So these data sources can be all aggregated into custom reports that you can design and get a look at that. We call that business activity monitoring. So you can design any kind of reports you would like. Okay, that's really the basic 3 steps through, what are rules, what are events, and what are processes. This exact same type of presentation I give at a university here to people that have no idea what programming is and are trying to become business analysts, and this goes over pretty well. So I hope everybody's good to go. I don't really know how we can do the questions, if there's questions, but feel free, if anybody's getting really confused or whatever here, to either write down the questions, and then we'll take a break here towards the end of this presentation, and you can start asking them, or we'll just butt in. It's fine with me. If somebody wants to say, hey, Eric, I got a question, that's fine too. So we'll move on to some of the concepts around this. So when we're talking about the basics of how an engine handles rules, you're talking about an inference engine. Now, inference is a little bit of a complicated English word. Not a lot of English speakers understand the concept exactly what inference is. How do we infer something when we're thinking about things? And there's also a few elements that are involved in this discussion, and one of them is facts. The other one are the rules, and this inference engine that is deciding something based on the facts and the rules. So every time you have a set of rules, you're using that plus some kind of information, and that's our facts. So data is brought into the decision-making process, and combining these two with some kind of smart engine is able to come up with an answer, right? So the best way to do this is to do something simple and visual. And here we have you listening, and you get the first piece of data, the first piece of information, a fact, and there's some kind of noise outside, but this is not enough based on the rules that are floating around in your engine in your head that you can make a decision about what's happening. But if you add a second fact into this equation before you start processing, you're going to come up with some kind of decision here, and you're going to infer that it must be raining outside. So this is really the basic elements of how these engines work. But we all being geeks, we want to get a little bit, and developers, we'd like to get a little bit more into the details of what this stuff is. So what is a rule? And at the most basic level, it's pretty much a good old-fashioned if-then statement. So they don't want to measure that as an if-then, so you'll hear them talking about...
Oh, one moment. Eric, we lose the audio, please. One moment.
How's that?
Okay. Your return.
Don't know why, but that thing was red. Okay. Where are we at? Where's my Windows? There we are. Okay. Where did you lose me? Did you lose me here or here?
Perfect.
Okay. So the rules. So what is a rule? I'll back up and redo this slide. So the if-then statement is the classic developer way to think of how rules are being placed in your application. So if you run into a bunch of if-then statements, these are pretty good candidates to consider some kind of business logic. In the jargon of rules, they talk about when-thens. So you have a when a condition happens, then there's going to be an action. And you see down there in the slide that they talk about left-hand side and right-hand side. So left-hand side being the conditions, and the right-hand side being the actions. So when we're looking at these rules, the when is going to be based on, this is going to be fed facts, and there's going to be some kind of conditions that have to match these. So when you fill in these facts, the conditions have to match. So your conditions are nothing but programmed out variables. And the actions are acting on these facts. So if we look at the core setup of a production rule system or an inference engine, you'll see there inside the inference engine is implemented with the RETI algorithm, RETI-00 in this case. That's inside the BRMS system. There's a pattern matcher and an agenda. And the pattern matcher is looking at the rules it's given, so the production memory consisting of a set of rules, artifacts, and the working memory where the facts are inserted. So we're going to set up some kind of session and put a bunch of facts in and then point to which rule set we want to use, and then we give it to the pattern matcher. And he's going to run off and make an agenda and decide which one goes first and what goes second. Now, what does that look like? We start in the top left corner. We have the static rules. They get parsed into the rules language, and these are put into a rule base. Now, programmatically, you put together a rule base. That's an expensive one-time action, and then that's reused by a bunch of working memory sessions. And these working memories are where you put all your facts in. So you gather in a process, for example, a person, a request, a car, and some kind of insurance decisions that have to be made. So you have a person, a car, and a request. Those all get put into memory. You say, I want to use the car insurance rules. I put those in there. And then you say, fire all rules. Now, what he does inside there is start matching these facts with rules, and comes up with a list, an agenda, just like you would have a diary that keeps track of your appointments. And the very first entry in your to-do list will be this one here, the top. And this one just so happens to have one fact matching a rule. So he'll take that rule and that fact, and he'll activate it and see what happens. So the conditions are either met or not, and if they are met, then it will apply the actions, which might modify some fact in this set. And once a fact is modified, he'll wipe the agenda and go through this rematching again and build up an agenda again until this agenda has no more activation entries. So there'll be nothing left to match and to look at. And then he's done. He comes back with the answer, and that's your fact set. So that's the really basics of how an inference engine works. I'm going to drink water here. So now let's take a look at the architecture. In a broad sense, one of the things about the way we work at Red Hat, JBoss with software, is there's community projects, and these lead to supported products. Now, these are the same pieces as in the community, but they've been tied together, and this is one of the best, or this the best set of products. These two right here to explain the complexities involved with trying to put together the various aspects you need to come up with a rules management system or a BPM suite. And for example, the rules project, I think, consists of something like 12 sub-projects. Not all of them are fully matured or elements that are included in the ready for production as far as we're concerned. But say that there are 8 or 9 of them are. These 8 or 9 are then tied together to enrolled into a product, and the interaction with each other is tested, and bugs are fixed and things like that to make it all work together. Not only that, it's also got to work with some of our other products. So things like camel routes and stuff like that. It has to be able to be embedded into things like that. So the JBoss Business Rules Management Suite is something that contains the rules and events section of what we've talked about, and then the BPM Suite adds in processes. So that's the superset of BRMS. So with the BPM Suite, which is what you're almost always going to hear me talking about because it includes all 3 aspects, includes the rules, events, and processes. So if we dive down into that a little bit, if we look at the BRMS, you have an overview here of the various components that are involved. And I'll just go ahead and handle them all here, and in the next one you'll see the difference is what are the aspects that are added. So this thing runs preferably on our JBoss Enterprise Application Platform, but this is one of the few products, or the only product I believe in the JBoss portfolio, where we say, okay, we'll support this on various runtimes. So other servers are supported, not certified and not supported with the same SLAs of what we'll do for EAP, but it is supported on, and it does run on WebLogic, on WebSphere, things like that. So the actual JVM is then the issue. So what JVM are you running it on? On top of that, you're going to find the rules and the events engine, and something that I only touched on lightly in this talk because it's a tech preview is a business resource optimizer, and this is a section of software that's based on the Opta Planner. This is a planning and optimization tool. So calling it a planner is not really fair because it does much more than plan rosters for nurses or determine how to fill up jail cells or scheduling school rosters and things like that for oh, somebody's at the door.
No problem.
The various planning aspects, and then on top of that, it's also able to do some really neat things like taking a data center full of cloud instances and load balancing all incoming requests to keep them on as few machines as possible to save you as much money as possible. Can also do things like taking shipping containers, which are sort of big, large square boxes, and then filling them with all manner of shapes and sizes. From there's even competitions to do this. To take like triangular boxes, round boxes, and they give you a set of boxes, and you got to see how you're going to pack them to get the most into each container. Things like this, using the resources you have based on the constraints you give it. It's a pretty neat little tool. But it will not be. It will be fully supported in the next version. It's the 6.1 coming out later this year, or beginning of next year. The main focus here is in the rules and the events, and then on top of that, what do we need? We need a rules authoring environment. We need to be able to model our data models, so we have those, and we have some way to manage our assets once we start developing all these things. On top of that, we have the ability to write tests inside the workbench. We have governance tooling, which I have demos around, and developer tools. And the whole idea here being what you're going to see today, and what I focus on in almost everything I do now, because we have a really nice dashboard and GUI, is to include the business users into the discussion. But there's still the existing, which has been around for years, the developer tooling in the IDE on the Eclipse side, JBoss tools. Which gives you the same wizards, the same workflow as what you're looking at inside the GUI. So you have a process designer, you have a data modeling abilities, that's writing your Java objects. And then in between you have a development repository, which in this case is now Git-based. So the developer can check out and work on the project, and the GUI, the user interface, the GUI that we have for the dashboard for the product is also connected to this repository. Once the product is or the project you're building is finished, you can hit the build and deploy button, and it's pushed out into a Maven repository. Now, by default, all our demos and stuff out of the box is just using your local Maven repository. That can be configured to be wherever you want it to be. And in the case where you tie in the governance tooling, your deployments then go straight. Excuse me. Once you decide to actually push your deployments out into the organization, they would hit then some kind of workflow in the governance to be approved before they're moved on from development to test to acceptance to production or whatever. So that's pretty much what we got with the BRMS. Giving you kind of a working overview here of how this looks. So you have your client applications that are then accessing either the events or the rules engines. If we're dealing with events, we need to have a way to have some kind of event stream in. And our rules engine are being fed either business data or from the client application given data. And our repository back here with the rules and the events that are being worked on by both the business analyst and the developer. So via the GUI or via the developer tooling. They share the same repository. Giving an overview here of a little bit of what the background is on the projects. Now, if we're talking about rules and events, this is the Drools project. That's what backs these things. The OptiPlanner I mentioned is that resource optimizer is hidden in here as a tech preview right now. The user interface is all built on top of the JBoss Uberfire framework. That's a pluggable user interface designing framework, and the repository is Git-based. Now you think, ooh, what just happened here? We got this great big BPM suite now. No, it's the same engine underneath the EAP. We have the same events, the same rules, and the same business resource optimizer. There's only two new things in here. That's a process engine and some kind of task server. So there's a separate server that deals with human task interaction and form generation and dealing with the task forms. That's the only things that are added in. You do have a large set of modeling tools that get added here. So we have the same rules authoring, the same data modeling, the same business asset management, but we use So the ability to design our workflows, and the ability to design and construct our tasks forms, so what the users are going to see. On top of that, some of the neat things that have been added are process simulation. So we talked a little bit about that, like pumping in a bunch of fake data and see what happens. So you take an existing process definition and you add monetary weight, and maybe an amount of time, some time unit, so then you can see each process costs so much, each decision costs so much, that kind of thing. So you start getting values out of how long it takes and what the bottlenecks are. And then we have a section within the tooling that's called business execution. So you have a process manager and a task manager. These are areas in the dashboard that you go into once you build and deploy to actually run and test and monitor what's going on. This will interact with the task server if you have human tasks, and provide you with generated task forms. All my demos do it this way. They include the very basic task forms. I don't spend a lot of time making them very pretty, because they tend to be embedded into whatever organization's GUI platform is, or they have a certain look and feel for how they design their user interfaces for their customers or for their internal people. And they just want to embed that task information into it and not have to use what we force on them. So we just keep it a very simple task form. And then on top of that, we have the activity monitoring, the BAM. There's a dashboard, there's auditing, there's KPI monitoring, and the ability to design reports and stuff like that. And then all the same tooling and governance and administration and repositories is here on the right side. So it's not that shocking. And what's it look like? The new things here, we have the rules engine, the events, and we also have a process engine. You see very quickly that it's not just simple applications anymore. You could be interacting and making calls out to web services, getting answers back from services, dealing with Java applications, other applications, business users, customers, whatever you want to do. And you see there's the BAM connection for the activity monitoring for the business users or the managers to see what's going on in their processes. And then the design side, where you have the repository again, that now includes not only business rules, but also process artifacts and task forms and things like that. And you can interact with that through the GUI or through the developer tooling. What's behind all this? We still have the rules for the engines process, but we now have the JBPM project, which is the process and the task stuff. That comes out of the community there. We have the business activity monitoring and data modeler, forms designer, all come from an acquisition we did over a year ago called Polymeda, and drag and drop tooling comes from that project over there, which is now part of JBPM. And the simulation stuff is also based on a standard called BP Sim for simulation. So there's standards-based simulation tooling is being generated, just like the standards-based BPM is all now BPMN2 tooling. So that's my initial presentation to walk you through the very basics, to give you the primer of rules, events, and processes, and what the tooling looks like and what you're going to be playing with. If there's any questions, that's how you can find me. I guess right now, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I can entertain them before we move on to looking at some of the other stuff.
Okay, guys, that is the moment for your questions. Please collaborate with your questions. Alex, Warren, Luis, Mauro, that's the moment. In the chat or the web page too. Alex?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can, yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about the business rules. So now I'm implementing a solution. It's an application that I want to integrate this application with a engine process, I think, and I was looking for some of different solutions like JBoss, BPM, Activity, Bonita Soft. Yeah, that I want to know why I have to choose or why I have to pick JBoss BPM solution.
You'd like a sales pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. The differentiation, I think, is what you're looking for, right? The differentiators. So when you're talking about JBoss, there's a couple of things and Red Hat in general that come around the corner. We have a different model of how we work with this stuff. We don't sell licenses; we sell subscriptions. So picking the technology is one thing. Generally, what happens is you sit down and you make a couple choices just based on your feel or what you've looked at. But the whole model of how you work with our company is a little different. So a subscription means like buying a newspaper. We don't limit you to versions. So you're not buying a version of a product. You know the general cycle that has been trained into everybody because you're used to paying large fees at the end of a project. So you work through your development cycle, your test cycle, your acceptance cycle, and right before you go to production, somewhere in the project plan is this thing about, oh yeah, let's buy some licenses so we can put it on the actual product in production, right? We work with a wide range of product versions, and that you take a subscription for a year. 2 years or 3 years is roughly what people do, 1 to 3 years. But year on year, everything that's available in the support cycle, so everything we've released in BPM, for example, might be anywhere from 5.0 to the now 6.02 is available for your use. So it's up to you what you want to use. The way we do that is in cores. So it's a 16 or a 64 core subscription. So if you just take a basic development environment, say we take development, test, and production, if you're dealing in 4 core machines, you can have 3 to 4 machines lined up that are being covered by this subscription. The subscription does not just start in production, it starts all the way down at the developer level. So the idea being that you step into this right from the beginning of your project. You have our support lines, and the support on development, test, and acceptance is, of course, a developer support SLA, so we're talking about like 3 business days for a reaction instead of 24/7 kind of thing around the world. That's for production. There's not a price differentiation in that. That's just what the idea is. We try to put the whole set of help in front of you from the beginning. So that's one thing I want to have clear at the beginning, because it's a very different model than what people are used to. And so many times you see people, I was an SA in the field for 3 years here in Europe. You see people come up and say, okay, we're ready for a subscription or a license from Red Hat, right? And you explain the subscription thing, and they're like, oh man, why didn't we have this sooner? Think, yeah, exactly. This is really world-class support. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're asking about an EJB bean that you're trying to get to work in your application and won't work. We'll try to answer those questions too. It's not just BPM stuff because you have a BPM subscription. It's across the board developer support, and the portal you go into is nothing more than raising an issue and looking for help or getting help from us directly. So that's one thing. Now the second thing is you step into the actual product, right? You're looking at the BPM stuff or the rule stuff. Why would I pick Red Hat versus this versus that? Now, first of all, we have the open source aspect, which is something that is, I mean, we're all quite aware of as developers. It's awful darn nice to be able to look at, a product all the way down into, the source code or into the logs, and not being shut out and having to, raise bugs saying, hey, this just doesn't work, but I don't know why. In our case, you see people regularly deciding they want a certain feature that we haven't implemented yet. And part of a support subscription includes being able to put in feature requests. And unlike closed source things, it's not just throwing it into a black hole. I mean, you're going to see that appear in the community's to-do list, being pushed by the company. Every product cycle, there's a bunch of stuff that's directly coming from some customer, or we've heard from several customers and like, hey, this is maybe a good idea to put this at the top of the pile. This does happen. You can drive innovation as needed. The larger you are, the quicker they'll listen. Of course, that's the way the world works. But that's one of the aspects. The second is, and I think is one of the most valuable aspects, coming from a development background before I joined Red Hat and using JBoss stuff, is when you're dealing with these products, you're dealing with something that's stable. You're dealing with something that's guaranteed to work for, depending upon the framework or the product, but in this case, we're talking 5 to 7 years. 5 years full support, usually a couple of years of end-of-life stuff or extensions that you'll get for a product. So 5 years, you're guaranteed to have your BPM stuff supported and working. If you've ever worked with these kind of implementations, in my case was at a bank here in my country, and the first implementation went really great. We're using all community stuff, but the minute you have to tweak one of these 8 or 9 components that you've put into your architecture for the next product release, or you upgrade something, or you find some feature you want to use in a new piece, all of a sudden things start falling over. And the guarantee with a product with a subscription, and we also stepped over to and went through this process. So it's not hard to be an evangelist when you believe and you've been through the pain and seen it work. Is that, you know, it's giving you something that's going to all work together in a you know, confident manner, something you can rely on. So not only do you have the open source, not only do you have a product that's supported for a while, not only do you have all these components that are tied together and they're pretty easy to deal with and to upgrade and go to the next version or whatever, you also have open standards in everything we do. So if there's a choice to be made in what we're going to implement inside, and you see, for example, the EAP engine is the, you know, that follows the JEE specs, you know, they implement these. If we look at our BPM and our rules, and they're wherever there's an option to choose some kind of notation, we're not making up our own stuff. You're not locked into this technology. It's BPMN2 for all the rules and the rules flows. So that means you can take your designing of your processes in your company. So they could even do it in PowerPoint if they want to, or Visio, as long as they have a BPMN2 plugin, and, you know, everybody's using that. That's the community standard for that area of work. So we always stay in there. And if you catch anything or find anything that's not implemented according to the standards, then, you know, we need to find that and fix that. Very much standards based in all we have. That's kind of the differentiation, I like to say. And one of the things we're also not, you know, supposed to hammer on is cost. But when you get down to it, a lot of times choices are made in software just based on cost. And the money you're paying for our products and our support is absolutely a factor smaller. I'm sorry, I'm starting to speak Dutch. A factor smaller than anything you're going to see in these other offerings. It's not an expensive solution. So that's always to our benefit when you have times of crises and stuff like this. So does that answer your question? Kind of the long way around the sales pitch.
Thank you.
Yeah, so far.
So far.
Yeah.
You know, and to back it down to something simple, I mean, this stuff is the JBoss has a history of being developers for developers by developers. So you get really good APIs and stuff like that in there that have been worked out and are constantly being worked on. So it's most of the time quite a joy as a developer to work with these kind of products.
Yeah, great.
I don't hear too many complaints.
That's fine. Eric,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if you or Red Hat is offering courses to training people about the BPM online. It's just for people, not for companies, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole. If you go to the redhat.com, or I don't have the exact link in front of me, but there's. If you would like, if you can't find it, please send me an email and I'll sort it out. There's 2 courses right now around the rules that are available. There's also partner training. So I don't know if you talk about just the personal thing or whatever, then that's not available. But if you're working for a partner company, they come by, and they also have online training that I've seen for BPM that's on the way. And the BPM courses are coming out very shortly too, that are updated to the newest versions. So yes, absolutely, there's training online.
Yeah, and this include rules too?
Oh yes, not so much focused on rules. They tend to all be focused on the product. So what you're going to hear is or be looking for is BRMS or the BPM suite.
Oh, that's fine. Fine. Thank you.
And the second option is what we're doing today, which the next steps I'm going to show you are actually working and walking you through this in a workshop. So you're going to get a freebie today.
That will be great. So
Yeah.
we have another question. So I wanted to know how to, if we can see the components like BRMS, but in a SOA is SOA environment. You know?
Sure. Sure.
Do you have any picture how we can see that?
Somebody's sounds freaking out. Let me think here. I don't really have a. We have something a product called Fuse Service Works, which I'm not covering here today, but that includes rules and some BPM aspects in the SOA, for services, because it's quite normal within services or messaging to use, for example, content-based routing we talk about. So you'll find within the Fuse infrastructure that they would like to use based on message content to make a decision about which path to take in the message flow. It's quite normal. So that's an example of how that would be embedded in that architecture. The rules engine can be deployed in one of two ways, either embedded with your applications, or you'll see, oh, there we go. That's the best way to do that. I'm going to go to look for an article right now. That should be enough. There we go. This article right here, this is part one, kind of a tips and tricks series that I do. It's a guest article with one of our consultants, and this talks about the various architectures and how it gets deployed, focusing not so much just on the SOA environment, but on an application kind of environment. And then you'll see it goes on to a part two with it gets more complicated as you go. So it starts out with really simple ones, and then it gets to be talks about hybrid execution servers and stuff like that. So maybe worth looking at. Leave that up for a second here so you can see what that is. Take a screenshot or something so you can go look that up. But like I just Googled, you can find it pretty easily. This stuff's not hidden. This was also on DZone. These things have been picked up by DZone, I believe. Yeah. So they're all over the place. People are really fascinated with when I start talking about deployment architectures and how it's done and what works and what doesn't. So as one is as a developer, right? So go ahead and take a look at those, and that'll give you a pretty good idea of what the positioning is of these components, and then it's not a large leap to put them into a larger architecture. You saw for the BPM architecture, a SOA environment is quite normal to use these, and you'll deploy these artifacts within your runtimes to interact with your service layer.
Yeah, Eric, I have one last question. What happens if I can use only the repository for rules, but I wanted to use the repository rules of JBoss, but I want to communicate this. I wanted to centralize the rules, but how is the best way to communicate and to access through these rules to get these rules?
I'll show you an example of that in code in a little bit. We can dig a little bit into one of those. I'm going to show you a demo of what we call the Cool Store. It's just a web shopping cart that accesses rules from that web interface, so the web app. and I can show you how that's done. But there's an API for this. So you remember when I talked about there's a K-base and a session, and you put facts into the session, and you put rules into the session, and you let that thing go. You say fire all rules. So there's a context you build up in 3 to 5 coding lines in an application where you take your rules package and your facts from your application, you put them together, and you say, hey, fire all rules, give me an answer, and then you can do something with that answer. That's how that works. So that's the programmatical way to do that. You also have the option to monitor. Remember, when we build and deploy our rule sets, our artifacts, our projects, they go into a Maven repository. So you're building your application against a Maven dependency, a jar file, so that's added to your project. But he could be monitoring a central repository from production or from whatever infrastructure level you're at. And you might want to make rule changes. And when you make these rule changes and promote them into whatever level that the application's at, there's something called a key scanner. Most of the API is referred to as key something, KIE. Knowledge is everything. So you'll have a key base and a key session, and you'll also have a key scanner. And this scanner is what monitors the rule changes in the background. So he'll pick up new jar dependencies when new versions come out, if you set it up that way. And in our web shop, we've set it up to monitor for the absolute latest version of anything that gets produced in that artifact series. So he's going to take the latest version, so you can update. We'll do that. We'll do a live update and show you what it looks like. Okay.
Okay, one more question, guys? No more questions.
No. Okay, move on to the next part.
Okay.
There's more.
More information?
more. Yeah, that's just the introduction.
More. Okay.
Just continue.
Are you hungry? 15
So,
maybe.
now we move on to the starter kit. We have both a BRMS one and a BPM one. Since you guys seem to be interested in the rules, we'll look at the starter kit here. This is a page I put up. This has a bunch of information in it to get you started. Talks about when you're evaluating this stuff. Points at the workshop. Also points you to the product page. You'll notice that's over here on the jboss.org, and this is where you can download a trial version. In this case, you're going to see that the bottom left corner of the browser, that's a 601 GA installer. Moving forward, and all the other products currently do this. When there's a 600, there'll be a 600 version put on here, and nothing past that. So you'll see my demos keep up to date with the most recent stuff, and I tag them, and I'll show you that in a second, so you can find the one that works with the 601 installer and use that. I'm going to try to align that stuff every once in a while. So that's the whole getting started place for BPM. So you can get started, and you'll see some of my demos and stuff embedded in here, and how to do it by hand. Today we're going to do it with a much quicker version of this stuff. And then it points you to the workshop, how to set it up in the cloud for yourself. So what you're looking at right now is available online. Plus you can also just set up an OpenShift application by following the instructions here, by going over to the project page, and it'll show you how to set that up. You have it on your very own account for whatever you want. And then you can walk through this workshop. And that's the next step. And you're going to build this web shop from scratch. So you're going to design all the rules, design the decision tables, go through the wizards, domain-specific language. You're going to model your domain. You're going to do a rules flow, and you're going to deploy all this stuff. And I'm going to give you the web app, and then away you go. You can run it. And then there's a collection of resources and how to keep up on what's going on here. And you'll find that also for the BPM starter kit. Exact same thing. See? So this is basically a accumulation of all the stuff that I put together over the last, I've been doing this for 3 years now. And you'll see here I also have links to various demo projects. So if we take the retail one we were talking about here, everything's on GitHub. I have quite extensive readmes that show you how to get it set up and get started. This is if you're running it locally. It's kind of fun. I even have one that runs in the cloud. You see a video on how to run it, and demos and screenshots and stuff. I want to make you attend to the fact, for example, if we're looking, I don't have it set up for the installer, but if you were looking for a version that works with some specific version on, it's been going on for quite some time, you can pick the version you want and find those inside the tags here. So have them all lined up. So whatever versions you want, you can go get. These are all set up exactly the same. You download and unzip them here, or clone them if you so wish. And they include some documents to get you started. They include a project usually. This is the web app you can build. There's some support stuff to set it up. There's init scripts for either Linux, Mac OS, or a bat file for the Windows people. And you have an installs directory, and inside the installs directory you'll find a README that tells you exactly what products need to go in here. And that's it. So you have to download those products, drop them in here. And a lot of people just contact me if they don't have the products or can't find them, and I'll put you in touch with somebody locally that can get you a hold of them. And all you do is you hit the
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm doing there is I'm throwing away the target directory. This is what it looks like when you check it out. You can also do this inside of a developer studio if you so wish. I tend to do it this way. So if we look at the installs directory, you see I've attached, I have several versions here, but you need I've linked to the EAP version, and then we're going to run the 2 versions. So get rid of the old one. That's my testing stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. So all we do is the init script. It tells you what he's doing. So if you wish, look inside the init script. You can see how it's being set up. Instead of doing it by hand and creating users by hand, this thing unpacks the EAP, puts the enterprise application platform, puts the BRMS 602, the latest version, on top of there. You see he's doing a Maven build of the cool store. He's copying that into, so the web app's being copied into the application server, and it's being deployed.
Eric, we cannot see your screen.
Yeah.
No?
No.
Let's see here. No?
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so here's where I started up the script. It runs through here, it builds the stuff. And at the bottom it always tells you what you got to do to get it started. We can just cut and paste it right there. That's going to start the server. So that's got the deployed everything in it. Basically takes away all the pain of having to set up the product yourself. These are where all my demos work. So everything we saw in the list here. Get rid of some of this stuff here. So this one, this one, this one, this one, these are all exactly the same. So if you're looking for a BPM with tasks, it's a rewards demo. Looks like this. Same exact structure. You just download it, put the products in the installs directory, and hit the init script. And it says here in the quick starts exactly how to do that. It includes the login once you've started it, and away you go. So all kinds of good stuff. So once that starts, the server here at the bottom, you'll see that it says it's started that thing and it's all ready to go. We're going to go to a Firefox browser now, and We're going to the Business Central console to log in. So that's at localhost 8080 Business Central. And the login is almost always Eric S. BPM Suite, or BPM Suite 1 exclamation point. It'll state inside the project. So if we go to inside the README there, you'll see that it talks about logging in, and this is the user password I need. So I'm just following that. And this is what the product looks like. You notice here we can tell we're in BRMS because we have no process management and no business activity monitoring dashboards or human task stuff. You'll see here this is the ability to kind of walk through the aspects of what you can do inside here. So you know, the modeling and how to analyze stuff and deployment and things like that. You see you have a user who has the various roles. I need to do everything I want in here. That's the pre-configured one. This is the home screen we're sitting at. You have admin if you have that role, and we do, and the project authoring, and you can also look at your deployment repository. So if we go to the administration stuff, you're going to see the repositories that have been imported. That's just this cool store demo, so that's been preloaded for you. You can throw it away if you want. I wouldn't do that. If you dig down into it, you can see the history of the Git, you know, the commits and stuff of what's happened inside here. You can clone it externally. You have something called organizational units, so the ability to create the name of your organization, who owns it before you start attaching projects to it. And you have the repositories, so you can take a look at what you have here. We just have the cool store and nothing else. We can clone a remote one. If you do that, you give it a name, you assign it to one of your organizational units, and you put the URL in here, and it'll clone it straight in. He'll do that from a file system or remotely. It doesn't matter either way. It does need to be an HTTP or something like that. It's not a Git clone when it's remote. Or you can do a brand new repository, which just gives it a name, add it to a unit, and you get a blank project to work on. Now, once you have that stuff, and everything over here is behind this arrow key, so these are the tabs. They're hidden. They're not like creating 100 tabs across the top here. You can close these back down. You go to project authoring, and this is the side where you're being the developer or the business analyst that's actually creating the artifacts. And a couple things to be aware of. My demos open up on something pretty or something to look at that's worth looking at, I guess. In this case, it's the decision table because it's a rules based demo. If it's a business process one, and this is not so exciting because it's a rules flow within the business rules, you see that there's a process designer. It's a full-fledged process designer, but it's only supporting the rules flow, so rules tasks, because it's about chaining rules together. So this is what we're doing here for every time we put something in the shopping cart, it's going to run through all these steps. If you hit this little plus button, you can actually see the various file structures of a project. And you notice that down here at the bottom is the data model is in here. At the default level, you see all the various artifacts. We don't need to see that. And we have the business process. We have an actual developer type of rule. And here you see the when and the then. And these are the conditions with variables for a shopping cart and a shopping cart item. It has to be equal to the shopping cart. And if we have that, then he's going to set the total, check for the savings, update the shopping cart, and then retract the shopping cart out of memory. That's what's happening here. What else we got? Domain-specific language. This is going to be used in one of the rules in the workshop when you design it to show you what it's like to put like an English language or a modified set of things that the wizard shows, so that the business analyst is guided through the rules to design them in the domain language he understands. So you could do it in Spanish if you so wish. Excuse me. And Then you can let them build rules that are based on Spanish sentences. We have the decision table you saw where we see here this is nothing more than a spreadsheet being linked in. So shopping tier, so when I ship $0 to $25, it's $2.99. That's the one we're going to play with. The guided rules. This is put together by doing drop-down menus and adding elements in and add another promo event and things. So you're guided through here to choose stuff and to add stuff. So if you look really closely, you see basically this is the when section right here and the then section right there. Try to make it a little bigger. And here's the guided rule one with the DSL. We have a very simple DSL. So when you got into the wizard, this now allows them only to select this kind of stuff. So if the customer spends a certain amount of money and you can fill that money in, then it gets free shipping. What that means, the guy in the domain understands. Free shipping to you as a developer means I got to do some kind of calculation in the background. You see we have test scenarios where we put in fake shopping cart items, fake shipping totals, and then we call whatever rules we want and we expect this output to happen. And you can run these things and get answers out of them. You run the scenario and you see down here at the bottom success. So no text was added, but everything went well. And that's about it there. So the second part of this whole thing here would be to look at the, I'm going to close down some of this stuff because I got a bunch of stuff open. Okay, you have the data modeler. This is because I modified externally, it comes up and warns me that that's happened. Here you have a product, and the product has these various item ID and name. These are attributes. Now, if you looked closely when I was expanding this thing down, you see that this turns into nothing more than a Java object. So this is what it looks like when you look at the source. So as a developer, you put together objects with getters and setters. That's basically what's happening. And he's generating some labels, positions, and stuff like that with annotations. But for the designer here, you talk about creating a new one. It's just a matter of naming it, giving it to a class path. And then when you're ready to add a new identifier, you fill it in here and you say create. He just adds it. You see out of the box, he has all kinds of types. And you have the ability also to embed objects that are in your domain model inside. So as a list or as an individual object. In this case, none of them are in here, but if we look at a shopping cart item, has a shopping cart. So you see here that this object has been embedded as an attribute. And it might be a list of them, so get a bunch of them. And it's a little hard to see here over on the side, but here's where the editing field is for each one. So you can edit those. And if you want to edit the object, you can change it from shopping cart to something else. So that's the domain modeler. And then we have the project editor. And if we're going to make new items, this is the drop down to pick whatever scorecard or add a guided rule or enumeration type, decision tables, whatever. And explore some of the stuff and look at the categories in your repository. When you get to the project, you're going to notice here the group artifact, the version ID, the Maven stuff. And when we're ready to go, we can build and deploy this project. And something I also should note, while you're designing, look at the bottom here. There's a problems listing that gives them like red pop-ups and stuff to make sure everything has to work or it won't deploy, which is a nice thing because when they do this and just check it all in, when you're doing saves, you see commit messages. So this is like committing to the repository. It's nice if they commit stuff for the developers that actually works instead of just breaking it all. Business developers may not always understand what they're doing. And you see here that build successfully. So now we can go see in our deployment that we have an actual deployment artifact out there. So when we're dealing with projects in BRMS, there's really nothing visual, right? It's all rules-based, all decision stuff in the background. But if we go to localhost 8080. We also have a web app deployed, which is our shopping cart, right? And this is a shopping cart where the checkout button is turned off because everybody's playing with it and sending me messages that it didn't work. No, you're not in a real store. This is a demo. All we're doing is adding stuff to the shopping cart, and when we do that, he is making use of our various rules, right? He's using this this process every single time and calculating what's going on. One of the buttons you're going to want to use is this one here on the end that says zoom to fit, and make it a little smaller so it does fit. So you'll see inside of a rule node, it's always talking about a rule flow group. So this is the rules that he's calling. So you add in the promo cart rules. So you can go look for promo cart rules, and might be this one. See, promo cart rules. It's a little smaller. This is the rule that's going to be applied when we hit that node. So that's what he's doing there. All right, let's have some fun and play with it. So the thing that I wanted to show you that's on the fly, so we've deployed version 2.0, right? Inside the code for the actual project that builds the WAR, the web archive, we're going to browse down into here. Cool store, and we have the utils, and we have a BRMS utility. Now you can see exactly how you're putting this together. He's putting together a key scanner right here that's looking for the latest cool store, and this is the artifact, and he's scanning for 10 seconds our Maven repository. So the latest one right now is the 2.0, and right here is something he's calling every time he's going to make a rules thing. He's going to get a new stateless session, and that container's been set up already one time here, as you can see. The container contains a new container, and from that container we give a session, either stateless or a stateful session. And when you're doing a rule flow, you need a stateful session, but most rule calls are stateless. We don't care about the state. You want to give it some facts, put it into memory, and away it goes. So the most interesting thing for us to look closely at is our rules, our decision table. We see here between 0 and 25 he has $2.99 shipping costs, right? So I expect if I add something that doesn't go over $25, that over here I should see a shipping of $2.99. And that's wonderful. Now what do we want to do is we want to go back, and for the guys that really like to look at the logs, you see that the deployment is 2.0 in here. It's kind of hard to see because it's been pushed out. Oh, here it is. See right here, you deployed the 2.0, and you see a key scanner right here monitoring the 2.0 jar. That's what he's picked up. Now we're going to do a change to that decision table. We're going to save it, and then we're going to redeploy it in a higher version. You're going to see it here get picked up in the logs that he's actually scanning that. So let's go back and be the business user and go in there and say, okay, now we've had a change in shipping. All you got to do is go in and edit the thing, and they've gone crazy at the post office. And for some reason, they don't want to carry small packages around anymore up and down the hills. So now they're saying it's going to cost us $2.99. So post office gone crazy prices. Successfully saved the item. And then let's go to our project here. And make it a little smaller so you can see it. And let's make this 2.1.0. Save that. Releasing. Save. Build and deploy it. Now let's go look at the log and see what happened. He did some deployment stuff here at the top. As you see, there's the space we left. And then you see here that he's noting that a new 2.10 was deployed, and the scanner picks it up within 10 seconds after that. So he should have it already. So that means that our application, which we've done nothing with, the very next person that comes through here should, fingers crossed, now have to pay $222.99. So that's what I was talking about the externalizing of your rules, making these things visible on this side as to what's happening. And you know, I can go back and say, oh, they realized they made a mistake. They only meant to make it $12.99. Save. Bump the version again. Now this is an example where he's detecting, and they're going to clean this up. This has been they've erred on the side of careful. So if the developer might be doing something on the other side, you need to know that you have to either reopen it or force save it. Now from this side, all the business users are going to force save. This is you're the big boss when you're running this thing. The very next version is also going to include, before that question gets asked, we're working on master branch from this for the techies out there. So you're committing straight to the master. As a developer on the other side, you would make a branch and then let the business user work on this. The very next version coming out is going to also include the ability to select the branch of the project you want to work on from the GUI. So you'll be able, as a developer, to set up a branch for the business user to work on, so he's not stepping on anybody's stuff, and he can go in there and merge the changes. And let's do it. And if we see the logs, we see now that we're dealing with, down here at the bottom, the key scanner, you just saw it live, pickup 220. So let's go make sure that the pricing is fixed. Add something to the cart that's under 25, and now we're only paying $12.99. So there you have the cool store demo that we'll walk you straight through that. The fun part about this one is it's also available in the cloud. Here. Oh. This is running on OpenShift in the cloud. Smaller. This one has a password of BRMS or JBoss BRMS. We've taken, and can show you the project here. Those are under cartridges. So you see here we have all these different ones that are available in the cloud. In this case, we want to look at the Cool Store demo in the cloud. So if you have an upgraded account to bronze because you need a large gear, you can follow this step by step how to do it. And there's an article online around this that shows you how to do this. Takes you step by step through it, and also includes a video showing you how it works. We'll give you a quick live demo. Now, if you look here in the cloud, this should be looking very familiar because it's basically the exact same thing we were just dealing with. See? And this one's been live a while, so I'm sure there's been a few releases done. Yeah, see, this one's at 310. You'll also find the web app online. You'll see that he's currently running it. We add it to the cart, $2.99. So you can go through here and play with it just like the regular one. So there's our cloudy version of the Cool Store. You see it's linked to the video here. So getting back to the presentation, that's a little bit of the starter kit stuff. Same thing is for the BPM Suite. So feel free to go through here and play with these. They're all available to you to play with. And that brings us into the actual workshop itself. We can wrap up this. The first one is focused solely on the BRMS. So this is the JBoss BRMS Cool Store. When you hit this, it's going to take you over here into how to install it from scratch. Walks you step by step through setting up the initial thing that I just walked you through. Everything finishes with famous questions. Every single chapter of the lab includes this overview, so you can find some of the links. And then it takes you on to the second one. I released these originally on with articles, one a week for week in, week out. This goes all the way into I think lab 10. Guess not. Oh, not 010. Or lab 10 to actually running it like we just did. So it walks you through with screenshots what it looks like. Notice the $2.99 has been tested here. And we're going to bump it up to 22, and then we're going to rerun it and deploy it and see that it runs $2.99. Includes a link to the video to watch you do that too. And that's the end of that. And then it goes on into the next lab. So feel free to go do that. That remains online under the BPM workshop on the Red Hat Cloud. The second part is focused on the BPM Suite, where we're going to build the rewards process. So this will take you through doing a BPM process with human tasks, designing the forms, designing the workflow, and then actually running it. And we can run through that demo really quick too. It's also a very nice one. And when you do these workshops, if you're having any trouble getting hold of anything along the lines of products or things like that, let me know. You're gonna I tend to keep these online as much as I can. They are hosted on the OpenShift Online, so there's no guarantees of SLAs or anything like that. So if it's down, then these are down. But if you click on one of these, for example, you're going to see this is a in the cloud BPM pass setup. Eric S. BPM Suite. I think that's what it was. Passwords were BPM Suite. You're going to see you have an installed BPM Suite. Now, the difference here between BRMS and the BPM is you now have process management and tasks and the BAM dashboards. So let's take a look here at the administration side, and you see that the rewards demo is already in here. Now, that means most likely, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So this is what it should look like. It should be completely empty, and it should have this in here. So always double check these because other people might have played around with them and put all kinds of garbage in here. So feel free, you need at least an organizational unit of demos, and that's it. Now if we go over to our workshop and get some of this stuff out of the way here. To our workshop quickly, and we start in here. He's going to walk you through installing the BPM Suite locally. That has nothing to do with the cloud, so you could skip this one. What we had when we did this one said go straight to lab 12 when you use the cloud one, so you don't have to do the local install. So let's create a new project, and this will kick you off right from scratch on how to do this, but it also starts with a help and a fast forward, and the BRMS one also does this. So it gives you a step-by-step how to go through the authoring, administration, repositories, clone repository. Now let's go do that. So authoring, administration, repository, clone repository. Ooh, what do we need to do now? Put in the rewards. choose the demos, and add this, whoops, clone this repository for us. And this is how you're going to import the solution without having to build the whole thing. But you guys aren't going to do that. You're going to go actually build it, right? And now you have a fresh rewards repository in here. We can go over to the project authoring. I don't know what he is here. Oh, he didn't pick up the repository change. We'll just log out. Log back in. This is a BPM patch. It's an alpha setup. It is not a supported version yet, so we're looking for feedback. So little things like what you just saw where it doesn't pick up an import is something they need to sort out. What's he doing here? There we go. So we're back. Should have picked up our project now. There we go. That looks better. Okay, here we go. Now we have the rewards project in here. Oh. I got to be a little bit more patient. We're dealing in the cloud. In this case, this stuff is all hosted on the east coast of America, so depending upon your connection with that part of the planet and how busy it is, it might be slower than your normal local install. So you see here what he has is he has a domain model, an award, an employee. I've designed a process. You're going to build this whole thing. And he has some task forms. This is the form we designed. That's what the form model looks like. You see that he has embedded objects and subforms. And there's a user task form is what it's going to look like here. We're going to look for approval, and we're going to do read-only stuff here that has been designed for you. So this process is about submitting a reward for one of your colleagues in an organization, and then HR is required to approve this. Once they approve or deny it, it gets logged what happens. It sends a note to the personnel file, and it emails the person directly, whether it got rejected or accepted. So we can deploy this process. This is the 1.0. We broke it. What happened? Oh, there's something already running. That's why he's freaking out. Ah, okay. Let's go to the deployments thing. This is nice. I've been using this so much it doesn't happen anymore. I keep saying don't do that, but these are the help things that pop up the very first time you go in. In this case, there's only one, so there's nothing to pan through. Here's our deployment. We want to kill this. No, it's not letting us do it. We have something running. We have active instances. So let's kill these. So this is somebody who was playing around in there before, so you need to go in there and undeploy the process. Okay. And you see down here our problems went away. So now we can go back to the project. Yes, sir, I know. I fixed it, don't worry. And successful. Now I'm going to show you what the interaction is with the process. So now we have the process management area, the tasks, and the dashboard. So the process definitions. This is what's deployed. You have the ability to look closer at it. And I'll zoom in a bit. And see here we have this, some of the details, some of the process variables, the ability to look at the instances or the model. If you do the model, it'll pop up here with a little viewer that's based on the process designer view. You see the exact same process. We can start a new instance. So we're going to kick off, and you see that form that I designed is already available here. IT, $100 for the jug session. Submit that. You see it started at number 34 and it's approved in the approved reward. So you see that it's moved forward here. But it's nicer if we take a look at the actual process, see where we're at. You see that he's going to show us grayed out nodes for each step that's already been taken. And he's going to be, so the start node has gone through and he's waiting at the rewards here. We can also live view process variables. We have 3. One is an object, one is a string, and one is a boolean. You can look at the values if they've been set. These haven't been set yet, so no point in looking at them. So what does our instance look like? One active instance. That's the view we were looking at. And you see these waiting to approve a human task node. So let's go check the task list out. And because I have myself the proper role, I can see the active task, no, group task, no, personal task, no. So there's no task. Why is there no task? There should be a task here for me. That's funny. So, not sure why not. Should be a task. There is no task. Not good. Let's try and start a new one. If we go back and look and see what the project authoring and see what the task is assigned to. Assigned to a manager, and that's the problem. This user does not have a manager. Well, that's terrible. Let's fix that. We're going to assign this task to. I have to fix that deployment. That's not right. Went too far. Let's do 2.0. So let's see what definitions are deployed. Version 1.0. And there's still instances running, that's why. Can kill that one. And look at our deployment. And we see that they're both deployed. No definitions are found. Go back and do that again. Taking you guys through much more of what's going on in the cloud than we've dealt with before. He's still pushing out 1.0, so we got a problem there. We can kickstart a process here anyway, give it a try. Bob IT, $10 because. See if we're actually getting the 1.0 or the 2.0. Yeah, see here's the 2.0. Good. Oh, the definition is from the process definition, not the project definition. Good. Okay. So now we want to view our task. And now you see that the task is available because it's now assigned to an analyst role. So I just had no user with the correct role. So I need to adjust the installation for that. That's kind of a pain, or somebody's tweaking it. So You notice that there's active, personal, and group. Now, in the personal, I have none. I haven't claimed anything yet. And in the group that I belong to, there's a task waiting. We can claim that task. You see nothing in the group. You do see active, and you do see my personal task. Take a look at it. See, it's in progress. Let's work on it. You see that it's presenting the form with read-only data, and these two are blank. That's part of the workshop. That's one of the things at the end that you're going to be pointed out from, hey, wait a minute, something's broken, you need to fix it. And I give you a hint, but I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it. And that's part of the learning process. We're going to approve or deny it. Let's not approve it. Complete it. You see the tasks been completed. They're all gone. There's no tasks. We go back to the process instance. There's none active, but there is a completed one. We can go view the completed process and see the path it took by looking at some of the log stuff that happened. We can also look at the model. And now it gets to be a little bit more clear what's happening in the process. You see it's approved, went through, was rejected, and ended in the rejected node. We can look at the process variables, see, for example, that the value was set to false and the name was Bob. You can look at it over time. It only got changed one time. It got set to Bob, but if you have variables that change over time through your process, you can see the history of it and everything in here. Now, that's process management and tasks. What about these dashboards? There's two dashboards. The first one is the process and task dashboard. That's based on the history tables. Here again, you'll see the help screen. You can browse through that. It talks about the reporting and stuff. Here we're waiting on the cloud version to start up. Here we go. So we've had 4 instances started. You see 4 instances, number of tasks 4, how many have been completed, active, whatever. Really quickly, I'm going to go back. I'm going to deploy one more. Just kick off a process. George HR. Gosh. We have something in the table that looks a little bit prettier. Because right now, when you have an empty, when you start this up, this is an in-memory database, so the persistence is not set up to a database. It's just to a in-memory thing. So if we restart it, it'll disappear. So you can drill down into these. This is based on the history table. You see this 1 active now, 1 completed, 5 have been run through in total. So you can drill down into these reports. You'll notice the filtering will take effect. It's going to show us the next step. Here you see that the instance is by status. So now you see a little bit more of a pie chart, a little bit more interesting stuff. Task completed by date, how long it took, it got started. So over time, people have been playing. It's been around for a while here, so about a week or 2 since I last reset it. You see, I'm the one that started these. They were all assigned to the user Eric S. Yeah. The other dashboard, and so this is not a modifiable dashboard. This is just the data that we provide out of the box of task and process information. But if we go to the actual dash builder here, you can see that you have the ability to edit this one. And there's something called data providers. These are your data sources. You see here, these are flat files for a couple of examples, and you also have the ability to query SQL. You see here, this is selecting stuff from a process table. We go look at a little bit more intricate dashboards. Here's like a sales dashboard. Loading it up. You can predefine all these things in here. And you see here, this is a GWT drag and drop kind of experience here. So we can look into the verbal commitment sales and see what's going on. What has this person been doing? Drill down into stuff all the way down to See what Catherine's doing. Let me say, okay, that's nice. We can go look at expense reports. Give it a chance to load up. And in this one we say, okay, now we want to add our own KPI, some kind of key performance indicator. Just going to drag and drop it into wherever we want to put it. I'm going to put it in this tab section. You see here it's been added, but it's empty. It says what data provider do you want to use. Let's go back to the sales stuff. It'll pop up with some designable key performance indicator data. Let's give it a name. Watching you KPI. And we can add a title. We can add integer values. And we can make a table out of it. These are like out-of-the-box canned stuff you can use. There'll be more in the future. Maybe we'll do this one. This is kind of nice. Yeah, when you're all done playing with that, you just close it and it's all ready to go. See right here. So just added a new chart to my dashboard. There's all kinds of ways to I'm not going to go into all the details to configure what you're allowed to see in a report, so who has access, what role has access to see this stuff. So you can see different dashboards based on different users. When you're all done digging around in that, you can just throw away your filter and it'll go back to the top level. And that's our tour of the BPM Suite Red Hat rewards demo. And if you continue on after you've added the repository, here it goes into the actual building this thing from scratch all the way through. So setting up your organizational units and all the way down to the end where it asks questions, shows you some links, and takes you on to creating a domain model, and so on and so on. So that's the last section of the online workshop. And normally I would have you guys working already, but since we're working at a distance, I would suggest that you guys head on over to the starter kits and follow this workshop yourself in the coming weeks or days or whatever you have time to do. And feel free to play with the demos I showed you. Those are all available. Follow my blog and stuff where I'm keeping all kinds of information flowing every week as much as I can. And who knows, maybe I'll see you at the next Red Hat Summit or something down in your area of the world where we come and speak. So that's all I have for you today. Stop the sharing. Go back to the video. And that's me.
Okay. Guys, one more question, last question for Eric, or that's the goal? Okay. Well, thank you, Eric, for your time, for your exposition. Perju is very happy with you. The presentation is very nice, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in the other time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Eric. Bye.
Have a good day. Night, I guess.
Yeah.
Ernesto.
See ya.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Finish.